Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Chemical Kinetics, Module 4, Lecture 1. This is Mallika Pathak from Randa House University of Delhi. The recording is being done under DTH Swayam Prabha project of MHRD New Delhi, and the academic expert of the course is Dr. Amrita T. Sheikh. Till now, we have looked at reaction kinetics and the terms involved in it and the theories related to it. Today, we will be using chemical kinetics to study the mechanism. How we can use steady state approximation to derive the rate laws for each of the mechanism. Then we will talk about the Lindemann-Hinshelwood mechanism, followed by the summarization of the day's work. Now let's start with the topic. So the first part when we study any reaction is that we find out the value of the rate law. How do we do that? We perform an experiment, find out the values of order of the reaction, then formulate a rate law, get the values of K and so on. And then based on that, we devise a reaction mechanism. Once the reaction mechanism has been proposed, we try and look for prediction of the rate law from that mechanism. If the rate law from the mechanism agrees with the experimental rate law, then we look for evidence supporting the mechanism. That means we are on the correct path and our mechanism is probably correct. But if our predicted rate law from the mechanism does not match with the experimental rate law, we go back to the drawing board and again work on our mechanism so that we get the rate law which matches with the experiment. So now we will learn how to derive these rate laws for a proposed reaction mechanism. So let's proceed further. So one way of finding out the rate law for a reaction mechanism is that we look at the rate determining step, and from the rate determining step we find out the values of the rate law. But if you do not have a reaction mechanism in which you can predict which is the rate determining step, or you have each of the elementary steps of the values of K which are almost in the same range, then you cannot apply this method of rate determining step. Then in that case, we use what is called as a steady state approximation. This is a method which is used to derive the rate law in cases where there are intermediates in the rate determining step, or the rate constant values of each of the elementary steps are almost in the same range. Now, this method is based on the assumption that the intermediate in the reaction mixture, in the reaction mechanism, is consumed as fast as it is generated. First, it is consumed and generated very, very fast. Second, it says that the concentration is very small and remains constant during the course of the reaction. We will be deriving steady state approximation in the later lectures while doing the sequential complex reaction. But right now we are trying to just use the steady state approximation. So what are the two important points of steady state approximation? First, that the intermediate is generated at the same rate as it is consumed. Second, its concentration is small and remains constant during the course of the reactions. So now let's look at this mechanism for this reaction, NO2 plus CO giving you NO plus CO2 gas. It involves two elementary steps. Now, if I do not know which of these steps is slow, then I do not know which is the rate determining step, and in that case, I cannot apply the concept of rate determining step to find out the values of the rate law. Then in that case, we use steady state approximation. Now just see which is the intermediate here. I'm just repeating what we have done previously. An intermediate is a substance which is produced and consumed during the course of the reaction. So look at this NO3. NO3 is produced in one of the elementary step and is consumed in the later elementary step. So it is an intermediate. This intermediate does not appear in the overall reaction, so which confirms that this is an intermediate. So if we know which is an intermediate, then we can apply steady state approximation. So let's look at this. So this is a graph for the concentration of intermediate versus time. Now what does steady state approximation say? That intermediate is produced as fast as it is consumed. So di by dt, the rate of formation of intermediate, is equal to the rate of disappearance of intermediate. And second, its concentration is very small and remains constant. So can you see that this concentration of intermediate remains constant during the course of the reaction. So this concept of steady state approximation is used in working with the reaction mechanism. Now let's look at some of the examples where we can apply steady state approximation to formulate the rate law for each of the. Let us look at the first example, that is of reduction of nitric oxide with H2. 2NO gas plus 2H2 gas gives you N2 gas plus 2H2. So once we've got this reaction, we perform an experiment and find out the value of the rate law from the experiment. This is the experimental rate law. Once we've done that, we propose a mechanism for the reaction, and this is the mechanism. Now once we've got the rate law from the experiment, we find out the rate law from the mechanism, and if it matches with the rate law with the experiment, we say that the mechanism which has been proposed is probably correct. So let's see how we can find out the rate law from the mechanism. Now in this mechanism, the first step is a fast equilibrium, second is a slow step, and third is the fast step. Now if I were to use the slow step, which is the rate determining step for finding out the rate law would be written as K2, N2O2 and H2. But we have a problem. N2O2 does not appear in the overall reaction. That means it is not a reactant. In fact, we know that it is an intermediate because what is the definition of an intermediate? An intermediate is something which is produced and then consumed during the subsequent reaction. Therefore, N2O2 is an intermediate. So using the slow step, I get a rate law which is dependent on the concentration of N2O2, which is the intermediate. So what do I do? I then apply steady state approximation to this reaction mechanism and find out the value of the rate law. So this is the rate law from the slow step, and we see that intermediate concentration is there and we need to find out the concentration of intermediate. So we use the equilibrium step, which was the rate of forward reaction is equal to the rate of backward reaction, and we can get the concentration of N2O2. So what was the rate of forward reaction? K1NO square. Rate of backward reaction K minus 1 N2O2, and we can get the concentration of N2O2. This concentration of N2O2 can then be substituted in the rate law that we had proposed earlier, which was 8 is equal to K2 N2O2 H2. So I substitute the concentration of N2O2 and I get a rate law which has K as a combination of K2, K1 upon K minus 1. So I can use simple K as representative of a combination of all these K, and therefore I get the rate law which is same as the experimental rate law. So I am able to use the steady state approximation where I did have a slow step, but the slow step involved a intermediate to propose the rate law from the mechanism. Similarly, let's look at another example. This is the decomposition of ozone. We know that 2O3 decomposes to give you 3 oxygen, and we have this experimental rate law. Minus 1 by 2 DO3 by dt is equal to K1O3. Now based on this reaction and this rate law, I propose a mechanism. Now suppose this is the mechanism. In this mechanism, I know that this is a slow step because this obviously has to be faster because you have a reactive intermediate like nascent oxygen, which is very, very reactive. Therefore, obviously the K2 is going to be faster and K1 is going to be slower. And so if this is a slow step, I can write down the rate law from the slow step. And the rate law from the slow step can be written as minus 1 by 2 DO3 by dt equal to K1O3. Why have we written 2? Because 2 ozone molecules are consumed during the reaction, and we want to say that this is due to the disappearance of 2 ozone molecules, which is equal to K1 into O3. Now, based on the slow step, I could do that. But suppose I did not know that this was a slow step. Let's suppose I had no idea that this was a slow step and I knew that they were of comparative rates. Then in that case, I can write down my rate law in terms of ozone, with ozone is the reactant, so minus dO3 by dt. Now, because this mechanism has two steps, so I can write in the first step, ozone is being consumed, so I can write K1O3, because if there is a negative sign, so I don't need to use a negative sign here because this is the disappearance and K1O3 is only talking about disappearance. In the second step also, ozone is disappearing, so minus K2OO3 it would have been, but because we've already put a negative sign here that ozone is disappearing, so it will be K2O into O3. So the total rate of disappearance of ozone can be written as minus dO3 by dt, K1 into O3 plus K2 into O into O3. Now if I write down the total rate of disappearance of O3 like this, I see that again the nascent oxygen, which is very, very reactive intermediate, comes into the rate law. Then I cannot use like this. So then I apply steady state approximation to this intermediate nascent oxygen. So what do? What is the steady state approximation? We are repeating it. di by dt is equal to 0. That is, here the intermediate is oxygen, atom, nascent oxygen. So do by dt is equal to 0. Now let's write down the rate law for this nascent oxygen. Now in the first step, nascent oxygen is being produced and this also has a positive sign. That means we are writing in terms of product only. So K1O3. In the second step, nascent oxygen is being consumed. So I will write minus K2 into O into O3. That is, these are the concentrations. So K1O3, because in the first step it is being formed. In the second step it is disappearing. So minus K2O into O3. Now if this is equal to 0 and I solve this, I get nascent oxygen concentration is equal to K1 by K2. Now this K1 by K2 can be substituted into the rate law that we have proposed from the mechanism. The mechanism where we had no idea which was the slow step and which was the fast step. So I substitute the value of nascent oxygen in this total rate of disappearance of ozone and we get this value. So I substituted K1O3 plus K2O3 O K1 upon K2. So we get 2 K1O3, which if I rearrange, I get the same rate law that I had got from the rate determining step and the experimental rate law. So the steady state approximation has a great use while studying the reaction mechanism where either the slow step involves an intermediate concentration or where in the mechanism I do not know which is the slow step. That is, we have comparable values of rate constants. We will look at some more examples. NO2 and F2. 2NO2 gas plus F2 gas gives you 2NO2F. We perform an experiment and get the value of experimental rate law, which is minus 1 by 2 dNO2 by dt KNO2 into F2. Then a mechanism is proposed and let's say this is the proposed mechanism. If I know this is a slow step, then I can write down the rate law from the slow step. So it will be K1 into NO2 into F2, which will be equal to what? Minus 1 by 2 dNO2 by dt. I'm repeating, why is this 2 sign? Because 2 NO2 molecules are being consumed during the course of the reaction. So this can also be done. But suppose I had no idea which one was a slow step, I thought that they were of comparable rates, then I can still do that. I can write down the total rate of disappearance of NO2. So I can write down minus dNO2 by dt. Now if I write minus dNO2 by dt, from the first step it will be equal to K1 into NO2 F2 plus K2 into F into NO2 from the second step. That is what. But the problem is there is an intermediate which is coming in the rate law. So then I do what? I apply steady state approximation to that reactive intermediate. So dF by dt is equal to 0 and because F is getting formed in the first step, so K1 into NO2 into F2. In the second step it is being consumed, so minus K2 into F into NO2. If this is equal to 0, I can get the value of F as K1 upon K2 into F2. This can then be substituted into this total rate of disappearance of NO2 instead of the concentration of F. If I substitute this, I get 2 K1 into NO2 into F2, which is the same as the rate law that we had been expecting from the experimental rate law or the slow step rate law. So that is how we can solve mechanism. Let's look at another example of hydrogen iodine reaction. The reaction is H2 gas plus I2 gas gives you 2HI gas, and the rate law for this is experimental rate law. So then what do? I propose a mechanism. I2 K1 upon K minus 1, sorry, the minus sign is not very visible here. K1 upon K minus 1 into 2AI. Second step, H2 plus 2I with the rate constant K2 gives you 2HI. Now, this is the slow step and this is the equilibrium step. So, based on the slow step, which is this, I can write K2 into H2 into I ka square. I square is nothing but, I is nothing but a intermediate. So, 1 by 2 dHI by dt is equal to K2 H2 into I square. Now, I square, I is what? An intermediate. So, using the equilibrium, K is equal to K1 upon K minus 1, I can write I square upon I2. I get the value of I square. This I square can then be substituted into my rate law that I had got from the slow step, and I will get 1 by 2 dHI by dt K2 K1 upon K minus 1 H2 into I2. So that is how you can look at the mechanism, you can work on them, you can either get them from the slow step. If the slow step has an intermediate and prolonged, you apply steady state approximation and up to it, and that is how you solve it. Now let us look at Lindemann mechanism. It's a very important part of kinetics and is an important explanation while studying unimolecular reactions mechanisms. Let us try to take a look at the unimolecular reactions. Now, what are unimolecular reactions? Where we say that only one molecule is present in the elementary step of the reaction. So, minus dA by dt equal to K. There are some typical unimolecular reactions that comes to your mind whenever you talk about unimolecularity. There are photochemical reactions, isomerization, decomposition, gas phase reactions, very low pressure reactions. All of them constitute typical examples of unimolecular reactions. In fact, in the early 20th century, most of the work on this unimolecularity was being done. There were unimolecular gas phase reactions which were being studied in detail, but people were wondering how these first order reactions were thought to be unimolecular. How are these molecules acquiring energy to form a product? How was this reaction taking place? So Hinshelwood, he was studying reaction of decomposition of propionaldehyde and ether. Ramsperger was studying the decomposition of azomethane, and they found that these reactions, these unimolecular reactions, were following the first order kinetics under the high pressure conditions and were following second order kinetics in the low pressure conditions. And the first successful explanation of these first order reactions was provided by Lindemann. Now, let's look at this theory from a perspective of understanding. Now, it is very easy for us to understand a bimolecular reaction on the basis of collision theory, because we think that two molecules A and B collide and their relative kinetic energy exceeds the threshold energy, with the result that the collision will result in the breaking of bonds and the formation of new bonds. But how do we account for these unimolecular reactions? If we assume that in a reaction like reactant A converting to product, the molecule of the reactant A acquires the necessary activation energy by colliding with another molecule, then the reaction should obey second order kinetics and not the first order kinetics, which is usually observed in these several unimolecular gaseous reactions. So, Lindemann tried and explaining to it, and he gave a very, very successful explanation for these. So, what did he say was that he said that the reactant molecules become energetically excited by collision with another reactant molecule. These reactant molecules could be a molecule which is a molecule of the same kind. So A may collide with A, or it can collide with another molecule M. These energized molecules may then lose their excess energy by collision with another molecule, or they may just shake itself off to form the product. So let us take this example of the reactant A. There is some another molecule M, and A and B AMM collide with the rate constant K1, and A becomes excited, energetically excited. So we represent that by a star in the superscript, and M. So this has become activated by collision. Now this A star can again collide with the M and get deactivated. So A star collides with M and deactivated. So this is a reversible reaction. So A plus M giving you A star plus M, and A star plus M gives you A plus M. And this deactivation takes place by collision. Or it might happen that this excited A just decompose to give you a product with the rate constant K. Now I must emphasize here that A star is an energized A molecule which has acquired sufficient vibrational energy which is enabling it to isomerize or decompose. In fact, I can say that the vibrational energy of the A exceeds the threshold energy for the overall reaction of the A converting into product. It should be emphasized here that A star is not an activated complex. It is just simply a molecule. It is just simply a molecule with a high vibrational energy level. In fact, I can say that this A star can collide with M, which is same molecule. It could be A can combine with A, or it can combine with another molecule M. So I'm emphasizing that this M need not be A, it can be some other species also. So this is what Lindemann said. He said reactant A can become energized, it can become activated. Now when I'm saying activated, I'm re-emphasizing here that it is talking about energized. So energized molecule A star plus M, and it can be deactivated by collision with the M to give you A and M, or it can decompose to give you a product. So once you have this kind of thing, which is called as a mechanism, I can apply a steady, I can write down the rate law. So I write down the rate law, which is d product by dt is equal to K2 into A star. D product by dt is equal to K2 into A star. Because product is formed in the third step, so I will write d product by dt K2 into A star. Now we know that A star is the intermediate because it is being consumed, it is being produced and then consumed during the course of the reaction. So we can apply steady state approximation to A star. So d A star by dt is equal to, in the first step, A star is being formed, so K1 into A into M. In the second step, A star is being consumed, so minus K minus 1 A star into M. And in the third step, it is again consumed, so minus K2 into A star. So we apply A star, steady state approximation to A star and get the concentration of A star. Once I get the concentration of A star, I can put it into the rate law that I had devised, which is d product by dt is equal to K2 into A star. So I can write K2 K1 into A into M upon K minus 1 M plus K2. So this mechanism was proposed by Lindemann to explain the unimolecular reactions, and we are trying to study their rate law. So once I've got this Lindemann theory and I'm writing the d product by dt, which is K1 K2 AM upon K minus 1 M plus K2, then I can apply, there can be two cases. We wanted to discuss the two cases which Hinshelwood and Ramsperger studied for the reactions that they were studying. That under the low pressure, the reactions were second order. Under the high pressures, they were first order. So how do we get this from this product, d product by dt, the rate law? So let us take the first case where K minus 1 M is less than K2. If K minus 1 M is less than K2, then I can ignore K minus 1 M. Then I can write simply K1 K2 upon K2 into A into M. K2 and K2 will cancel out and I will be left with K1 into concentration of A into M. So this reaction is a second order. It is first order with respect to reactant A and first order with respect to M, the other molecule. So under the low pressure conditions, which proves what Hinshelwood had said, that under the low pressure conditions, these decomposition reactions was following second order kinetics. Okay, and we say that this leads to the activation being the rate determining step. Now let us look at the other condition where high pressure is there, where that means the concentration of the M is more. So in that case, K minus 1 M is greater than K2. If K minus 1 M is greater than K2, then I will neglect K2 in the denominator and I will be left with K1 K2 upon K minus 1 into A into M upon M. So M and M will cancel out, and I will be left with K2 into K1 upon K minus 1 into A. That means the reaction has become first order when the pressure was high. What is happening in this case? If this is the case, that is K2 is as a small step, or it is a rate constant with a low value, or that means this is a slow step, then in that case what will happen is you will have the fast removal of the energized molecule via collision, and product formation will be the rate determining step. So Lindemann explained what Hinshelwood had observed in his experiment, that the decomposition reactions under the low pressure conditions were second order, that is they were first order with respect to A and first order with respect to the another molecule, and in the high pressure conditions they were first order. But Lindemann did it for unimolecular, and right now what we are seeing here is that there you have a reactant A and N. So he actually explained it with this for the unimolecular. So this can be written as Lindemann-Hinshelwood mechanism, because Lindemann had used the previous concept to explain the unimolecular reaction. So if I assume that my M is simply reactant A only, that means a molecule of A collides with another molecule of A. Obviously, in a test tube, when you take a small amount of A, or you can never pick out one molecule. You are going to always have some molecules there, and so each molecule of A can collide with another molecules of A, and one molecule will become excited via collision. So energized. This energized molecule can be deactivated by the collision, so it is a reversible reaction, and it can also form products just by decomposition. Obviously, if this is the Lindemann-Hinshelwood mechanism, then I can write d product by dt is equal to K2 into A star. Then I will apply steady state approximation to A star. We already know that in the first step it is formed, so K1 into A square. In the second step it is going away, so K minus 1 A star into A. In the third step again it is being removed, so minus K2 into A star. If this is equal to 0, I get the value of A star. I substitute into d product by dt, and I get K1 K2 A square upon K minus 1 A plus K2. Again, same thing that we have done previously. There we had assumed that A is colliding with another molecule M, which could be any molecule. Here Lindemann said that unimolecular reactions are taking place because they are colliding with the molecules of the same kind. So we have d product by dt. So if I apply the low pressure conditions where concentration of A is less, then K minus 1A is going to be less than K2. Then in that case, d product by dt will come out to be K1 A square, because we are ignoring K minus 1A in the denominator with respect to K2. And the reaction has become second order in the lower pressure conditions. If I apply the high pressure condition, that is the concentration of A is very high, then K minus 1A is very much greater than K2 and cannot be ignored, and K2 can be ignored in the denominator. So in that case, d product by dt will be written as K2 K1 upon K minus 1 into A, and the reaction has become first order. So this is how Lindemann explained what Hinshelwood had observed in the decomposition reactions. To summarize what we have done today, first we studied what is steady state approximation, how it can be used on the mechanism to derive the rate laws. Then we studied about Lindemann-Hinshelwood mechanism to understand how unimolecular reactions take place. So we've done quite a bit today. We will be continuing with chemical kinetics in the next class. Thank you. Stay home and stay safe.